Welcome everybody. Today is going to be another discussion video, but this time it's going to be a discussion video on something that's kind of trending, or at least was trending a week ago on BookTube, and that is libraries. All this Yahoo got started when ArielBisset, who, if you're watching my channel, you've probably seen hers before if you're not subscribed to it, came out with a video where she had gone to a library and gotten a library card, but she was talking about how she didn't think realistically she would ever actually go back and check out any books, and how on BookTube there's this very pro-library stance when she didn't feel like most people actually use the library, and she was talking about how she liked to have her own library and so on and so forth. And then Lena from Kiss My Frog, who, again, if you've watched my channel, you've probably at least heard of Lena before. They're both awesome booktubers, by the way. I'll link their channels down below. But Lena came out and basically said that if libraries had served their usefulness, then they should pass away, that we shouldn't keep something that's not useful to society alive, especially since most libraries subsist off taxpayers' dollars. And that we also shouldn't be afraid to let libraries change and adapt, and even if the library that we know it doesn't exist 20 years from now, the role of libraries, which is to kind of promote and share books, is something that's more of an individual responsibility than anything, which I thought was a pretty cool video. I'm going to kind of weigh in with my 2 cents as it is. My wife and I both went to the library pretty regularly as children. We both grew up with a love for libraries, and that's changed a little bit for me as I've gotten older and I've just, started having the ability to buy my own books. Currently, I don't so much check out a lot from libraries. I will every now and then, but right now I have so many books, and a big percentage of those are books I have not read, so I typically tend to stay with the books that I own instead of checking out books from the library. My wife, however, is a very avid library supporter. In our area, like within a 30-minute drive, you probably have 15 different libraries, and she has cards to all of them, and she regularly visits most of them. She's also engaged in a lot of book clubs, so a lot of times instead of buying a book for book club, she'll go and rent it from the library. My wife also nannies several children, and she's very big on taking them to the library, so she's very much one of the people who wants to see libraries continue. I think a lot of the discussion around libraries on BookTube has been focused around books and the idea of people checking out books and reading books from the library. And while I understand, because this is BookTube, I think it's a little bit of a narrow view of what libraries offer. I know libraries in concept and in practice have existed for thousands of years, but I'm going to be focusing on the United States. When this country was founded, education was radically different than it is now. Back then, you didn't send your children off to school. Everyone was homeschooled. But what would happen is, any books that a person had in their possession became their child's education. You would teach your child to read, and then he would read all the books you have, and that's how he would learn history and literature and any grasp of mathematics and physics and geometry. All of his education was consumed by a family's books, by their own personal library. The problem was, books were expensive, especially at that time. So the better off your family was, the more books you had. So therefore, the better of an education you could offer your child, thus basically giving him more options in life. So when libraries came around in the United States, it kind of evened that playing field to a certain level, because now, even if you were a poor family that couldn't afford to buy lots of books to give your child an education, you could still send that child to a library. That child still had access to the same amount of books, whether he came from a poor family or a rich family, because most libraries had more books than even the richest family in the area. And in my opinion, this is a huge role that libraries have played throughout the history of the United States that most people don't talk about. They've leveled the playing field. They have been able to take certain advantages and certain resources that at times through history have been a privilege of the wealthier people, and they've been able to provide them to almost anybody. You think about when the fax machine first came out, libraries started buying fax machines and allowing anyone to send faxes. When the internet first came out, For that brief time when internet access was severely limited, libraries offered internet access. And they still do to that small segment of the population of people that aren't able to afford internet, or maybe aren't in an area of the country where it's available. I was reading the other day about how certain libraries are starting to buy 3D printers, and you can go into a library and print something off of these printers for a small charge, of course, but it takes something like a 3D printer, which is out of the grasp of probably 90%, if not more, of the people in the United States, and all of a sudden put it very much within their grasp. Libraries are a very safe environment. Parents feel safe dropping their kids off at a library and picking them up later, or having their kid walk to a library if they're not able to pick them up right after school, or having a kid eat lunch in a library. It's still one of the very few places in the United States that's still considered a safe environment. At the same time, they're also a haven for homeless people. They're one of the very few havens for homeless people. Most homeless people, they go into a business, they get kicked out. You don't see that in a library. The other day I went into a library and I saw a very fancy sports car in the library, and then I walked in and there was a homeless person there reading. And I think it's pretty neat that the library is a place where you can have people from both reaches of society that can be in the same place at the same time. The library is one of the few places where that happens in America anymore, especially since there's been like this social fragmentation that's happened because of rigorous political ideologies that has really done their best and succeeded in many ways to turn the different classes of America against each other. But the library is still one of those places where those classes seem to break down. You get treated the same way in a library if you're homeless or if you're incredibly wealthy, because the library isn't really looking for anything from you. Basically just go in and you're accepted there no matter what, because the library's goal is to serve the community, not be served by the community, as in most businesses. Also, libraries do a lot outside of books and computers. They offer a place for community events. Most libraries offer some sort of tutoring. They offer summer programs for kids that don't have a safe place to hang out in the summer. They do library book sales. Libraries really are, in my opinion, a valuable resource to the community for multiple reasons. And yes, as things have changed, as the internet has come along, using libraries as a resource for finding and tracking down knowledge, that has changed a little bit. As personal book ownership has increased, the demand for checking out library books has decreased a little bit. But even with that, I think libraries have a lot to offer, and libraries will have to change some, as with anything, and that's not a bad thing. Life is all about continual change, and there are those who want to sit back and bemoan the fact that it's changing, but it doesn't stop it. You're always, it's always going to be changing. But ultimately, I think libraries were created to serve a purpose to the community, and ultimately that's their focus. It started out as books, and I think that has decreased, and it might even continue to decrease. Maybe it won't. I've seen statistics where actually circulation in libraries has been increasing over the past several years, and if it does, that's great. My point is, just because there are a few of us on BookTube who don't check out a lot of books from the library, might never visit the library, that doesn't mean libraries are dead. That doesn't mean that libraries should become extinct. That doesn't mean we should stop giving money to libraries, because ultimately that's a very short-sighted view. That would be a lot like me saying, like, oh, I don't like the public pool, I haven't been in a few years, we should shut it down. Just because I don't go doesn't mean other people don't go. Just because I don't enjoy it doesn't mean other people don't enjoy it. Just because I don't get any benefit out of it doesn't mean that lots of other people don't. And it's very narcissistic to think, oh, this doesn't offer anything to me, therefore it needs to shut down. Because I am one member of a very large society. And just because I'm at a point right now where libraries don't offer a lot to me doesn't mean they don't offer it to other people, and it doesn't mean that at some other point in my life libraries won't have something to offer for me. If there is something that levels the playing field, so to say, a little bit, I think we as a society should get behind that, especially because, yes, libraries use taxpayers' dollars, but it's not that much money. especially compared to other social welfare programs. They're pretty cheap, and I think they offer a lot to the community, and I think they offer a lot more than even I'm aware of or what I mentioned in this video. So while I respect everyone else's opinion on this, if your opinion is that the library should go by the wayside, I would really challenge you to look at libraries, just not what they offer you or not what they offer you in terms of books, but what they offer the community as a whole. And I think you'll really find out that they're beneficial. That's basically my rant. Thank you for listening. Feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. You can comment if you agree with me. You can comment if you disagree with me. Love to hear your views on this. And until next time.